What's going on YouTube? Team Starcraft here, bringing you the overview of the Protoss race. Today I decided to use the unit tester to build the units quicker, just so I can get this video kind of done a little quicker and kind of let you know what's up. Now I didn't build a probe, so I wasn't able to build the structures to show you the upgrades, but I think I know them by heart, so we'll go ahead and get started now, okay? So new to the Protoss, this video is the changes since Legacy of the Void's release. Now they did announce changes 9 months ago when they're introducing Legacy of the Void initially, but they did change a lot in beta, so if you haven't been paying attention to the beta and keeping up, this is kind of an update video on what all the units do as of today, November 24th. Alright, so we'll start from the gateway lineup. They still have the Zealot, nothing's changed, still quite the same, can still get the charge lot upgrades, still kind of your cheap ground harassment tanky siege unit to let your range units do the damage. Stalkers also didn't receive much changes, they can still get the blink upgrade, still kind of your ground anti-armor ranged unit, not too much different there. Sentries as well are still pretty much the same unit, still get force fields, can still use guardian shields, can still hallucinate any units you want to the battlefield. They did get one change, however, oh, force fields. Your force fields can now be broken by the Ravager, which is the new Zerg unit, but other than that, not much has changed. Now, new to the lineup is the Adept. It is 70 shields, 80 health. It is a light unit, does bonus damage against light units, so very good at harassing workers and dealing with little things like Marines or even Zealots. Does cost just 25 more gas than the Zealot, so it's kind of hard to see why you would ever want to build Zealot to deal with ground units, because the Adept seems to be more superior in any way. Can get the upgrading Renaissance Glaives, which increases the Adept attack speed by 45%, which just makes them ridiculously better. Their other ability that they come out with is Psionic Transfer, which is this weird kind of almost teleport ability. They move a lot faster while in here, and once it times out, it will teleport your Adept over here. So you can kind of get behind worker lines, and while you're in that form you can't be killed or attacked. So it's good for harassment, or if you're like trying to run this way, you send your shade out this way. But you want to keep on running, kind of waiting. They're wondering as a shade can attack over here, but then last minute you can just cancel it, and then you keep your Adept here. So all in all, Blizzard kind of introduced this to help bring some more micro to the Protoss, some more early game harassment options. So Adept, fairly solid unit. Kind of takes the place of the Zealot a little bit, because he does seem better. I mean, stats are pretty much similar, except the Adept does a lot more damage from what it seems like. But I mean, we'll see how it plays up. Maybe the Zealot gets a buff later on. Moving on, after you get your Twilight Council, you can get High Templars. After you get the Dark Shrine, you can get Dark Templars. Nothing's changed. Still the ultimate Protoss cheese unit. Rush it, try to get some cheap wins, some easy kills, use it to harass bases, does a lot of damage, one-shots workers pretty much if they don't have any armor upgrades. High Templar still has feedback, Psionic Storm, can morph to Dark Templar or Templar, High Templar, to make an Archon, just still your kind of big, badass, anti-everything Zerg unit. Hits air and ground to splash, can deal with Mutalisk pretty easily. Kind of just your late game big boy over here. Mothership Core, one of your starting units after you get a Cyber Core, can build it from the Nexus. Does have some changes to its abilities. There's no more Nexus overcharge now, but now for a lot cheaper you can do your Photon overcharges, but they now go on pylons, which gives pylons, pretty much turns your pylons into photon cannons for 30 seconds. Or 11 seconds, excuse me, and the cannons do 30 instead of whatever photons do, which I think is like 20 or 25, which is a little bit stronger, so now you got to be mindful of where you put your pylons. But all in all, I do like this a little bit better. It is cheaper, it lets you throw out more, but doesn't last nearly as long, but it does still pretty good ability. Mass Recall is also cheaper. Instead of 100, it does cost 50. All in all, to help the Protoss defend their bases, because they've been having a little trouble in the late game defending multiple bases, so they got this buff. And then Time Warp, which costs 100, but it is different now. It doesn't cast like the instant now. It takes a couple seconds to build up, but it does cover a bigger surface area. So I don't know how I feel about that. Usually you can micro out of it before the Time Warp even goes down now. So from the Robo Bay, still have your Colossus, still get the Thermal Lance upgrade. I think they got a slight nerf. I don't think they do as much damage as they used to, But the Colossus seems to be a little bit outshined by the new Protoss unit, which is the Disruptor. Less health than the Colossus, that's for sure, but its ability is a little bit different. Now it does have this, it doesn't have an attack on its own, but it does have this Purification Nova, which shoots a ball of energy, lasts 2 seconds, deals 145 splash damage, and an extra 55 shield damage to any near units or structures. So this is actually pretty good Protoss splash. It does take a little while to get used to the timing, and your opponent can micro against it, but if they don't do anything, it kind of looks something like this. Oh, see, they're hold on, this is not gonna be good. I don't want to lose my disruptor. Alright, you guys can die. Here, let's try it again. See, I didn't time that just right. My friend Brain Crusher's here. 2-base Muta, he's laughing at me right now. Alright, so let's try this one more time. Alright, so now we're gonna send it off, and yeah, you see that? Wreck that big bunch of Marines. Does have a pretty slow cooldown. I still have to wait like another 10-15 seconds before I can use it again, but it does do pretty good splash damage, and if you have a couple of these, firing out a couple of those will just kind of wreck any ground forces. Doesn't hit air, just ground though. Anyways, moving on. Immortal did change, still tanky, still does a bunch to armored units, but now its barrier ability, which I guess is set to autocast, but I think you can take it off and activate it whenever you want. If it's on autocast, it'll activate whenever he takes any damage. But if you want to choose when it actually happens, you can take it off autocast. And what it does is it absorbs 200 damage for 20 seconds, or 2 seconds, excuse me. So pretty much you can use them to break siege lines and pretty much not die in that first 2 seconds, and afterwards they're just normal. So I don't know how I feel about this ability. I don't know if it's a buff from the old Immortal or not. I guess we'll find out. Observer still the same, detect cloaked invisible units. Warp Prisms did get a buff, can still get the speed upgrade from the robotic support bay, but their ability is a little different now. They have considerable distance they can pick up their units. So watch me get this Disruptor, and you see that? It picks up from a very long range, which does help the Protoss have plenty more harassment options. Can still morph to where you can warp in units here. But main thing is that it's got a crazy range. Like, look, you just whoop, get my Immortal out of there without the Warp Prism even having to like go too close, which is definitely good for Protoss. It does open up more harassment options. One notable thing while we're talking about the warping mechanic, Protoss did get a little nerf to their warping times. Now if you warp in on a pylon, like a forward pylon, it takes like 14 seconds, something ridiculous. But if you're warping at a pylon close to a gateway or a nexus, your warping time's like 4 seconds. So all in all, the idea is you can warp in quickly to defend home bases, but if you're being aggressive, it's going to take a little bit of time. Going on to the Protoss air units, Tempest got changed and then got changed back. Still the normal Heart of the Swarm Tempest, still do good damage against massive air units. Void Rays, I don't know if they got buffed. They seem a lot stronger now than they used to be. I don't remember what damage they did before, but I've seen people going mass Void Rays in these team games, and these Void Rays are just annoying. I don't know if their damage is buffed or not, but they've been very annoying. Oh, actually, that does look different. That used to not be an ability. So they can activate this ability.
No, that used to be an ability. It just never increased it. Just increased the attack speed.
Yeah, this
Now it's adding damage.
6 damage. Oh, okay. So actually, the prismatic alignment doesn't. It used to be like whenever, like per seconds you're attacking, the beam slowly increases, but now you can actually activate it to increase your damage to 6 against armor units for 14 seconds. Maybe that's why they seem so strong. Okay, so it's a toggle ability now. Interesting. Warp Prism got some pretty cool. Oracle still can be harassment, still can use Revelation to see cloaked or burrowed units. I think Revelation is a little different now. I think now it's you have to cast it on an area before it would make your Oracle turn into an observer. So now you can just see wherever you cast it, so you can't morph it and then fly your Oracle around to see cloaked units. Pulsar Beam's still good for harassing worker lines, but they did get this nifty new unit called the Stasis Ward, which is kind of like the Protoss version of the Widow Mine, and I'll kind of show you what they do. They are on autocast, so they'll automatically go off as soon as an enemy comes by, but let me try to bait some in and show you what they do. Alright, so we'll send another disruptor out. Try to do a little harassment. Try to kill off a bunch of those Marines. You get a good chunk of them running away, and see the stasis goes off. And what that does is it will lock these units in stasis for, I believe it's like 23 seconds or something ridiculous. Stasis Ward, 21 seconds. So while they're in stasis, they can't be attacked, but I mean, it gives you time if they're trying to attack you and using it defensively to just kind of stall, or you can just wait for them to come out of stasis and just blow them up again. Which I failed horribly right there, but that is a cool ability for the Oracle that they can use now. Phoenix is still your fast, kind of anti-light air, anti-air unit. Didn't get any changes. I think they could still get their attack beam upgraded later on in the game. Carriers did get a big change. They automatically spawn with their interceptors now before you have to build them. And they have a new ability where they can release the interceptors. You do lose them all, but you can send your interceptors to a target area and they'll attack, and you can just run your carrier away. And you can still get the activation gravitation catapult, which lets them release their interceptors more quickly. So I'm going to just release them over here. All my interceptors are gone, and my carrier can just run away. And all the interceptors do is just going to fight. But now I have to rebuild all the interceptors when I do that. But that is a pretty nifty ability. It can be very annoying to send interceptors just to random bases and then without having to lose your carrier. Last but not least is the mothership. It evolves from the mothership core. Still has the same abilities. Only thing that changes is it turns to this huge thing and gives all your units cloak and gets a lot more health than other things. And I think the mothership actually got a speed boost. I don't remember it being this fast before. But I think the idea was they still want you to be able to use your mass recall and other abilities to keep it with your army so you can go home and protect your bases. Anyways, that seems to be the gist of it. Some interesting changes for the Protoss. We'll see how they turn out. Alright, until next time guys, have a good one.